Moment, please. You are now live on Channel 8 and YouTube.
Great. Thank you very much, PCTV. It is 6:30. I'm Chairman Mike Curry of the Select Board, and I'd like to call this business meeting to order on March 20th, 2024.
Great. I'm John Kappas. I'm the chair of the advisory committee, and bringing the advisory committee to order.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. A moment ago, I said it's a business meeting. It's actually a special meeting to get all of the school systems that services Templeton to make their budget year presentations. So this evening, we've got Montezut Tech, we've got Narragansett, and on the line, Norfolk Agricultural. So I believe the batting order tonight will be Montezut. You're all set. We'll go to Norfolk and then Narragansett. You're normally the home team, but I guess we'll treat you like visitors tonight, right?
Wow.
All right.
I'm really excited to see this.
I'm starting with the school metaphors, so come on.
You're back cleanup tonight.
So this evening, it's really, there's not a lot, there will be questions and otherwise, and I would ask that the two chairs just kind of control any questions that we have, but really the business tonight is for the school districts to brief both the board and the advisory committee on your budget year. If anyone winds up having any recording, please let me know. As it's a public meeting, we might get some visitors from the public. Any other housekeeping that I'm thinking? Nope. Okay.
Well, good.
All right. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up your. If I don't get it on the first try, then
We'll hold it.
Yeah, we have a we have a backup plan.
So this part has always happened. Oh, look at that. All right. Control L.
Look what we got.
Didn't have a doubt.
Glad you didn't.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks so much. Again, just gonna say my new Tom Brown. I'm superintendent at Monty Tech, and Tammy Crockett, our business manager, and we're very happy to be here again in Templeton to share out, give you a quick update on some things that are happening at Monty Tech, and then Tammy will go through the budget as normal. So kind of starting off, one of the things we always like to start out with is to make sure that as we're supporting the budget, that we're making sure that we are accessing grants and opportunities that we can do to support our program without having to tax the towns. The first one that you can see there is we've gotten our fourth iteration of what's called the Career Technical Initiative. This is a workforce training program, technically for adults, unemployed and underemployed adults. But obviously, any equipment, any materials that we purchase, we then can use that during the day because those adult programs are at night. This is free workforce training for the individuals that are a part of it. They have to apply to be part of it through the state, working with Mass Hire. This grant, the most recent iteration we got last summer was $720,000. So we're up and going with that. Eventually, when we start our MVP Academy, which I'll be talking about a little bit, they'll be doing some training down there as well. So it's a great adult workforce program. In the next slide, you can see just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, our most recent graduation. We do hold a ceremony for those adults. The real nice part of this is these are a lot of folks who have changed careers, made that left turn in life and decided, you know what, I've tried to work as a X, but you know what, I'm going to be a plumber, or I'm going to be a welder. And seeing their families in the audience when we do the graduation ceremonies and their kids are so excited for their parents. It's a great opportunity. So we just finished the culinary, CNC operator, welding, and property maintenance graduate programs. And now we're looking at, there's a group still ongoing, carpentry, electrical, HVAC, and plumbing. A great program that we're really proud of. Another grant we accessed last time we were here, last year, we were letting you know about we had received an anonymous gift, cash gift that we had used for our cabinet making program, and then we intended to use it to redo our spray booth and our auto body program. We did the RFP for the spray booth. We put it out. We realized, ooh, spray booths are a lot more expensive than we thought they were. We realized the installation of that process was going to be a lot more than we were ready for. Again, we looked at the workforce access opportunity grants that were out there. We found this Kenneth Donnelly grant, applied for that grant, received that for $500,000. The $500,000 in that grant with the additional 300 plus that we still had from the donation will end up covering the spray booth, which is exciting because the picture there isn't our new one, but it is the one that's down at Bay Path, and we're going to be installing a similar one. We currently are still using our original spray booth from 1960 something that we had. That really doesn't work, and pretty much we just wash cars in it. But anyhow, we'll be getting rid of that. We're excited to get going on this. This will allow us to start an adult program on auto appraisal in terms of damage to cars and obviously the repair of the cars as well. This next grant that's listed there, we're really proud of this one. The state reached out asking different companies and schools to access and help a workforce group that's really ignored, unfortunately. And that's young adults, 18, 20s, even early 30s with disabilities, autism, folks who have social emotional issues that prevent them from being able to work, to access the regular workforce and everything else. And these kids can do work. We know that physically they can do it. They just need the supports. So the grant was to provide training specifically to these students. We partnered with CAPS Collaborative and the ARC, two organizations that work with these students. CAPS Collaborative is right down the street from Monty Tech. And what this did is it gave us an opportunity to say to about 15 students that they'll receive 7 weeks of technical training. They'll get a week of professional training to learn how do you act in a workforce area. How do you work with your employees, your boss? Because again, some of these, it's about social issues and everything else. And then the end of it, what's great is we give them 2 weeks of a paid internship, and then we give them a job. We've reached out to different companies, Red Apple Farm, Hannaford, Colonial Hotel, all have said they will hire these students when they finish with our program. So we're really excited about this. We're really proud of the fact that we found out, surprisingly, that Monty Tech was the only regional vocational school that applied for the grant from the state. So we're excited to start that program. Should be kicking off in about a week or two. So we're really happy with that. And then just to always highlight, our individual shops are always out there getting different grants. This was an iCar one that our auto body folks did, allowed them to get $25,000 and replace older equipment and everything else. So then you can see the chart there that shows we're still having another really good year for FY24 in terms of grants, about 1.3 million that we've gotten so far. That one outstanding one is the culinary one that actually goes back to last March. We were probably talking about it here. The state held back on awarding that. We are being told that should be announced anytime this week. Our goal is to apply this to our culinary program so we can create a Monty Tech food truck. Because we all know that food trucks are the things that are going on the culinary world these days. Yeah. In terms of, those are competitive grants. In terms of just the allocated grants that we get, a big one that's important to us is Perkins. And if you don't know what Perkins grant funds are, this is federal monies that go down to the states that are then dispersed to different workforce training programs. And what Monty Tech uses, and what we want to highlight for everybody, the big thing that allows our kids to get jobs upon graduation is called industry recognized credentials. It could be OSHA training. It can be, it's in CAD and Autodesk, there's lots of different things. And these cost money for the kids to get these because they have to take tests and you have to pay for those tests and everything else. So with our Perkins funds, we use almost half, just about under half, $102,000 specifically for all these. And you can see the list of all the different shops and all the different IRCs that these kids are acquiring through the program. So we're really proud of even how we use our allocation grants as well. Not just grants, we want to make sure that you guys know that we're looking at any opportunity we can to try to save some money for the towns and everything else. Last year, towards the fall, we suddenly got contacted by Mass Save. I'm assuming everybody knows what Mass Save is, kind of the collaboration of, Unitil and Eversource and a whole bunch of the energy companies. And they said that they were going to identify Monty Tech as one of 14 commercial organizations. Even though we're educational, they count our building as kind of a commercial organization, for their energy efficiency and how well we were doing in terms of saving money by putting the things that we had put in place for energy efficiency. What we love, you can see the bullets there. One of the other things they highlighted us for was the fact that how well we're training our students to be aware of energy efficiency and how important that's going to be in different trades and everything else. So it's just a great award, but it was also just kind of spoke to the fact that we're trying to save money in any way we can. The big project that we had introduced last year that we're still very proud of, and we're now getting closer to getting started, is the MVP, what's now called MVP Academy. We didn't have a name when we came here last year. This is the program that we put in place, partnered with Narragansett, with Gardner High, with Fitchburg High. And what they'll do is they'll send students to Monty Tech. We released a building down the road, about a mile down the road, an old warehouse, a Wachusett Brewery warehouse, that we are taking our students are converting into 3 vocational programs, house carpentry and plumbing immediately. And then we'll do, house carpentry and electrical immediately. And then we'll be doing plumbing down the road. This program will allow students to stay enrolled in Narragansett, enrolled in Fitchburg Gardner, but come to us just like our students do, A week, B week. They'll do their academics at home. They'll do vocational with us. They'll get 2 years of vocational training, juniors and seniors, and they will be job ready when they graduate. They'll ready to go out and get work. They'll get the 900 hours they need to get. We're really excited about this opportunity. When we let the state know we were doing this, and again, I have to thank Dr. Cassavant, she's been a big part of the program and everything else, the other superintendents, because no one else is doing this. Doing it during the day is a brand new, this is what's typically called an after dark program, but we're really excited about the opportunity. We're still looking for, one of the things that we have concerns is we also see that's a challenge for those sending districts because they have to come up with how they're going to handle the academic piece when you're talking about cohorts of students. So this next grant that we're going to write is specifically going to include the state, because the state, if they want this to happen, which is what they told us, they said, if you guys can make this work, we're going to try to get others to do this. They need to support the academic pieces as well. So we're going to build that into the grant and hopefully see how that comes. So you can see there's a couple pages there on MVP. It shows what the program's going to look like. We have some pictures there from the start, what the warehouse looked like, the work we're doing inside. The bottom left corner there showed the great idea of the fact that our students are doing the work. We had to cut the floors because we had to build ADA bathrooms. We were going to go to a contractor to do that. And our instructor said, no, I think our kids can do it. Our kids and our contractor, we rented a saw. They did all the work themselves, saved $5,000, and now we're working away. So it's a great opportunity. As always, I want to thank our co-op partners. You can see February, so this is actually a few weeks old. We're probably closer to about 230 of our students are doing co-op jobs, which means instead of going to shop, they're going out to real world workforce areas, getting paid, doing the work, and supporting folks. It's just been a great year, and we expect the end of the year in May to show even better numbers. Want to make sure everyone understands we are still partnering, making sure we have connections with post-secondary opportunities because we are supposed to keep college and career ready. Worcester State has stepped up, given us some great dual enrollment programs, allows those students to take these programs either very inexpensively or free in some cases, and they're getting credit for that. We're going to look at maybe even doing an early college program down the road, but you can see some of the programs that these kids are doing. That's a fantastic thing, and we really appreciate the work that Worcester State's been doing. One of the things that when I was here last time, we did talk a little bit about the fact that we really want to highlight, because there's always that, well, college career. Well, vocational, you only have, if you have kids to go to college, that's a bad thing. It doesn't work that way. If that's your perception of vocational education, now you're thinking 1950s vocational education. We have kids in programs that have to go on to college. You know, that very first shot that's listed up there, animal science, they'll graduate and they'll have an opportunity where they might be able to be a vet assistant. Very low paying, they can get a job, but they're not going to be able to live on that wage. They go to college and they become a veterinary technician. Now they're getting paid pretty good money and they can do that, but they have to go to college to do that. So where on that chart, wherever you see blue, those are shot programs that you would expect the kids to have to go to college. You know, you see health occupations, you know, it's no surprise that 24 of the 25 kids in health occupations are going right on to college. You can be a CNA when you're done with our program, but you're not going to make any money until you go and you become an RN or whatever the situation is. But then on the second page, you look and see those orange, those are the traditional construction trades or trades that you would expect people to go right into the workforce. So you see 14 of the 16 kids in auto technology went right into the workforce. 16 of the plumbers, 16 of 16, all the plumbers went directly into the workforce. So this myth that goes around that vocational education is only focused on college is just a myth, as we said. We have some pictures here of some of the works that we've done in the different towns and everything else. I always remind Adam and anyone else, anytime you guys might have a project, we can't guarantee we can do it, but we love doing them. And so please feel free to reach out whenever you have. You can see some of the ones that we did most recently. And we're really proud to keep that work going. And that is it for me. So I will turn it over. I'm sorry if it went quickly, but I know we got a couple people to go through, so I was trying to be quick.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, I
Right.
get the fun part, and I apologize in advance. I have a bit of a spring cold happening, so sorry about my voice. So I'm gonna start with the budget plan. So my first slide is the FY 25 foundation budget. This is really the base, the whole basis for how our budget is built. So this is FY 25. The state allocates, and I know you guys are all familiar with this. The state allocates funding to the foundation budget, which is pretty much your minimum required spending plan. So you can see on the top, they give different allotments by grade level, and then going down the 11 columns, the 11 rows, excuse me, different funding under each category. So as you can see in Monty Tech's case, all of our students are vocational. So 1476 is in vocational. We do not have 1,476 students at Monty Tech. This is our foundation enrollment number. So that means the students that live in our 18 cities and towns that actually attend Monty Tech, plus students that live in our 18 cities and towns that school choice to other vocational schools. And we also have a practical nursing program that's Chapter 74 certified. So the few students that live in our towns that attend that program get added into this number. And vocational outside of special education gets the highest foundation rate per pupil spending. So that's how the first half is built. Second half, columns 8 through 13, are what they call above base. So these are additional monies that the state tax on to your foundation budget based on different categories. Now, row 8, where you see special ed in district, it has the number 73 there. That is not the number of special education students Monty Tech has. You can look at Narragansett's when you see their number. It's not the number of special education students they have there. It's an assumed percentage by the state, which is much lower, 4.93%, 3.93%, which is much lower than the actual percentages in each district or all districts. But nonetheless, that's how their formula works. So they take that assumed percentage number, they add some additional funds to base, and you get those numbers. We do not have any special education tuitioned out because you have to go to Monty Tech to be a Monty Tech student. Our ELs, we have 10. They're in column 12. You get additional supports for those students as well. And then column 13 is your low income students. And how the state identifies those is that when you upload your students, they all have a numbers assigned to them. State goes out into its database and matches them with EBT, transitional assistance, where the state has them in their database. That's how those numbers get placed in there. What happened this year that caused a change to handful, 17 or so, no, slightly higher districts, is that Mass Health changed the way they recertified people as low income. It used to be 133% of the federal poverty level.
Mhm.
They changed that to 185% this year. So several districts dropped a low income group level. And what I mean by that is in the bottom left,
185 was the cutoff.
yes. So what I mean by you went down a level is if you look down in row 15, low income group, we have a number 6 assigned to us. We were a 7 last year. And what that means when as you go up from 1 to 10, the money they give you above base in column 13 goes up per pupil. So by us going down this year, a low income group, we lost $225,000 in our foundation budget. Several other districts did too, millions of dollars. So it's just something I'm pointing out. So our total foundation enrollment, everything added up, is 29,900,307. When they divide that out per pupil, it comes up to spending per pupil, 20,258 per pupil. You'll hear me mention that again. That's why I just like to point it out. The next slide is the breakdown of our Chapter 70 monies. I'm going to start in the first section. Number 1 is just what we're getting this current year. 2 through 5. They took our foundation budget, which we just saw. They take the required district contribution, which is the wealth model they come up with for all 18 communities on how much they can afford to pay. That comes to the 11,648,232. So subtracting those, our foundation aid for FY, I apologize for my voice, it's awful. Our foundation aid for FY25 should be 18,252,075. You can see by comparing that to row 1,
Mhm.
it's less. So we are what's called hold harmless. So, and 220 other districts are similar. So what that means is they should be technically cutting your Chapter 78 this year. They hold you harmless, and instead of any increases, you get the minimum, which is row 6, $30 per pupil. So we're getting a minimum 44,280 added to our Chapter 70. So don't spend it all in one place,
Yeah,
right?
hang on.
So that gives us our total of 18,362,984. Now, when you go over to the next column, you can see our foundation enrollment, our foundation budget, required district contribution, Chapter 70, all the numbers we just talked about. Our required net school spending is $30,011,216. I would normally always say to you, your required net school spending and your foundation budget are the same number. And if you look in 24, they are.
Mhm.
They're not the same number when you're a hold harmless district. Because what the state says is, oh no, you're going to spend the required district contribution from your communities plus what we're giving you in Chapter 70 money with the additional bump. So we're telling you, you must spend $30,011,216. And again, as a reminder, that does not include capital, debt service, pupil transportation, or meals. And what this tells you a story of is before I even get to the final tea leaves, you can tell the burden of Monty Tech's budget is put on the backs of our communities, because you can see required district contribution went up $480,000 of our $525,000 increase. So you can already see how that's formulating.
Yep.
The next slide is called budget summary. So this is a quick snapshot of what's happening. So you can see our net school spending. We just talked about that. Transportation, $2,516,010. That's for our 30 buses that go to and from school every day. We're in our second year. We have a 4% increase there. And some of the other increase to this line is special education increases. You can see our above net school spending is $296,948. That's less than 1%, that 0.9% of our required spending. And our capital budget and vehicles total 510, which in total is a $10,000 increase over FY 24. Our capital budget in FY 25, that 460, is reserved for bleachers. We need new bleachers on our athletic field. It also includes in there transfer to stabilization and OPEB account. So all that total comes to our gross budget, 33,334,174, or a 2.46% increase, which is largely driven by our net school spending increase. Next gives you our estimated chapter 70, which we talked about. The required minimums we talked about, we'll get to. Our transportation and other operating budget portion of our assessment is derived by taking transportation and above net school spending, adding those, then we subtract from that our estimated transportation aid, our regional transportation fund. So what that is the school committee has voted to establish this fund. But if we get additional monies in our transportation aid in a given year, they will vote to put that money into this transportation revolving fund rather than have it roll into E&D. And the requirement of that fund is that it has to be used in the following fiscal year to reduce assessments to member communities. So if you look at our FY 24 number of 1.7 billion transportation aid, based on our estimated cherry sheets, how it's looking, we think we're going to get a little bit more in than that. So that's why the school committee is going to vote to put the 150 in of any increase to offset transportation. We're also using 250,000 from E&D to bring us down to a net transportation and operating assessment of 487,958. The next section is our capital, which is the capital from above, vehicles and capital, 510. We're proposing using 200,000 from E&D to bring the net capital portion to 310,000. That gives us a total assessment number of 12,446,190, or 3.79% increase. The next slide will show you in our certified excess and deficiency account, we were certified at 1.3 million. So school committee voted to take 450,000 of that, which you just saw, to reduce assessments. So as you're aware, regional schools can have up to 5% in that account. This puts us at 2.6, enough in case there's an emergency, but enough to help offset assessments. I told you we put a small amount each year into our stabilization account, about 25,000 per year. So our balance is up to 346,570. We're saving that to do we try to keep our capital assessment pretty stable to our communities. We're putting money into this account we have a couple of medium to high range, mainly our main electrical gear, which is to the initial building as well, which is going to need updating. And we know that's going to be $750,000 to $1 million at least to do some work on it. So we're trying to get this built up to have that be an offset to any community assessments. In our OPEB count, 21,919. It's small, but it's there, right? The next slide is the summary by function code. So you can see comparisons in how we're spending based on each function. If you had a chance to review your budget book at all that we sent along, it's much more details in there about our FTEs. It breaks the budget down into a little more further line item breakdowns. But on the next slide, kind of is a highlight of where the spending is going in this budget. Salaries, 3% COLA for all staff, a step and column movements. That's $490,000 of our increase. The next significant portion is our pupil transportation. And again, I pointed out it's a 4% increase for that, $116,000. The next piece is technology. So our network is kind of coming to end of life. So we're going to be making the investment this year of, the switches, the core, different techie things. I apologize, I'm not the tech director. And as well, I play one on TV, but and then cyber.
Doesn't even say one on.
No, not even.
Tell me, one thing we've been catch your breath. For the technology piece where it says cybersecurity protection, one thing that I'm making sure that we make sure all the districts know this is a public thing. It's not that it's the first time we're saying it. Sadly, or unfortunately, in the fall, we were the victim of a cyber attack. The good thing is that due to the great work of our IT program, we didn't lose any data. We didn't have to pay any ransoms or anything like that. But it was a wake-up call. We definitely, like I said, we had things in place that protected, but we realized, you know what, you need a whole lot more these days in order to avoid these kind of situations. So you can see we're putting a significant investment into cybersecurity equipment and everything else. Because it was not a lot of fun going through. And, Tammy wasn't any help because of her technology skills.
Oh,
Fees for that. I talked to someone yesterday. They monitor it for you.
And that's kind of what we are doing right now. So, but that was one of the key things. And the other thing, just so everybody knows, we just finished the first year of our 3-year contract. So this 3% increase is year 2. We have another 3% increase for year 3. Just making sure everybody knows where we are on the contract, because as everybody knows, some of the teacher negotiations across the Commonwealth this year have been pretty crazy. And
What year are you in?
We're just going into
Going
year 2.
into 2 for
Yep.
this coming.
So we still have time on that front. So, sorry.
Excellent. No, thank you for the voice rest.
Hmm.
The next slide is a snapshot from the state of the foundation enrollment for our district. And you can see by Templeton, you went from 83 to 87 students. So you have an increase of 4. The next column is the required minimum contributions as calculated by the state. So you can see that went from 545, 212 to 604, 478, or an increase of 59,266. The next slides go into a little bit more detail about that. You guys are, I know you're very familiar with how these slides work. This is basically the spreadsheet that the state uses to calculate a community's wealth and their ability to pay their schools. They use 2 factors, or actually 3. They use property values, income, and a municipal revenue growth factor. So 1 through 3, they use your 2022 property values. You can see what that number is. They multiply that by a uniform property percentage. That 0.3902 is a number they use for every community from A to Z. It's the same percentage. And they come up with Templeton's local effort from property wealth, 3,486,662. 4 through 6 is based on the income of the citizens of Templeton. They use 2021. You can see the uniform income percentage, 1.4299. Again, uniform across the state. So they come up with the effort from income for Templeton, 3,870,579. So adding those 2 numbers up, they come up with what they call a combined effort yield. And for Templeton, that's 7,357,241. Then they take the foundation budgets of all the towns, all the schools Templeton belongs to, and what portion of those schools' foundation budgets Templeton is. So you represent 17,857,138. They take a maximum number of that. They multiply that by 82.5%. The reason for that is even the most affluent and wealthiest of communities at least get 17.5% state aid as a minimum. So they come up with that number. Then for row 10, they say, what's the lesser of row 9 or 7? So in this case, it's row 7. So that's what they put in there. Then we'll go over to row 13. the state says, what is Templeton paying this year for their required local? So you can see that's 5,844,163. Multiply this by a municipal revenue growth factor. This number is different for every community. It's calculated by the Department of Revenue. It's your Prop 2.5 levy limit, it's new growth, additional receipts, new income, etc. Calculated by DOR. So 3.8% for Templeton. So they come up with a preliminary FY25 contribution, 6,066,241. Then they, coming down to 21 for 27, they say, how does that number compare to what we just said we think Templeton can afford to pay, which is row 10? They say that's a shortfall of 1.2 million or 7.23%. So if you look at row 23, it says if the shortfall is between 2.5% and 7.5%, we're going to add a percentage to your base. So they take what you're paying this year on row 13 and they add a percent, or they multiply and get a percent of that. So 58,442. So they take that and add it to what they've come up with to be your preliminary contribution in row 15. That's how they come up with what your required contribution is for FY25, 6,124,683. The next slide shows you how that gets allocated between your school districts. So going down for rows 5 through 9, you can see you have 87 students at Monty Tech. Your portion of Monty Tech's foundation budget is 1,762,416. How they get that number is they take that per pupil spending number that I told you at the start of my presentation of 20,258 per pupil, and they do the multiplication there. And they do the same for Gansett, just based on the per pupil spending for Gansett. And they say, Monty Tech, you represent 9.87% of the whole. So we're going to take 9.87% of Templeton's required contribution, which is row 5, 6,124,683. And we just went through all the calculations for that. They multiply that out, and that's how they come up with the required contribution to Monty Tech, as well as Kansas. And there's, you have the one Templeton here, that would be your Aggie school. So that's how they come up with those required minimum. So you can see 604,478 increase of 59,266. Breaking that down for Templeton over 2 years, so you can just see yours. You can see your foundation budget. We just talked about that. Required minimum, we just saw how that was calculated. The transportation and operating, that's the piece that Templeton's apportionment of enrollment times our operating assessment gives you that number. Capital of 13,992, again, Templeton's apportionment of our school attending children number to get that number for a total assessment of 647,232. I do want to point out that your total assessment is actually less of an increase than your required minimum contribution is, just because the other portions of Monty Tech's budget assessment to you went down. Not, much less, but nonetheless, it's a little less. And then you can see the 7,439 would be the town's assessment per pupil. The next slide is just a breakdown of all our communities. The only numbers I didn't talk about of significance to you would be, if you're looking at Templeton, you'll see foundation enrollment, 87. What percentage is 87 to the 1476, our total enrollment? That's 5.89%. So that's the basis for your operating assessment. Your school attending children number, which is grades 1 through 12. I get that from the superintendent's office. 626. What percentage is that to our total school attending children of 24,956? You represent 4.51%. That number is important for two reasons. That's the percentage of your capital apportionment of our budget. It's also your quota number. So our school committee for our freshman class. So our school committee at our April meeting voted a freshman class of 355. So Templeton will get 4.51% of that. So that's how that works.
Great.
Last slide is just a comparison of per pupil expenditures by school, basing us against vocational schools in the state. Latest state numbers out are FY21. So you can see we're kind of right in the middle of spending for the state. I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, I apologize for my.
You did a great job.
Well done, well done.
Very well done.
There's a mint right there.
We have some
Please.
drops in the car.
Any questions for either Tammy or Tom?
No, great job.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you
Thorough
once again for all your
every year.
support,
It's
too.
very thorough. I enjoy watching how you break it all down. Thank you.
Thank you.
you good?
All right.
There are no questions. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Your voice lasts through the next.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't want to hear me try to do that.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
Nice.
Haley just got a raise.
Is that called getting rolled up the bus right there? Is that what just happened?
Paper, get it in writing.
Yeah, I think it
Oh,
was
no, it's not
recorded.
recorded.
Superintendent Wallace is the business administrator. Okay. They're both jobs.
All right,
Night, happy
Superintendent
Easter.
Martin, I do not have a presentation to show, or if you want, I'm sorry.
We have the assessment letter,
Yeah.
Okay,
the last page of that tab.
great.
That's page tab 9.
Tab 9, correct.
Okay.
I had, if I could introduce myself, I'm John Martin. I'm the superintendent at Norfolk Aggie, joined by our business manager, John Wallace. I had told Ms. Nally in our email exchange that we do not have a presentation per se, that we'd be in that we only have one student from Baldwinville attending our school. We didn't think it was necessary. And in retrospect, Monty Tech would have been a really tough act to follow. So
Don't feel
I'm
bad.
glad
then
you don't have,
every year.
we don't have to be compared. So yeah, we have one student. She is a freshman and is a student in good standing. So she's on the honor roll. We do not, a little bit of a unique situation. Students at the Aggie do not choose their major until the end of their sophomore year. So she's still got another year plus to make a decision as to exactly what direction she's going to go in. So a little background on the student that you've sent to us.
Okay.
At this point, if you have questions about tuition or anything else, we'd be happy to field them.
I only have one question, Mr. Chair. What's your per pupil cost at the Aggie?
Our per pupil cost is our tuition cost. It's our budgeted tuition cost for next year. So it's including capital, it's about $27,905. That's our tuition expense for out of county students, which of course Templeton is out of county for Norfolk County.
Thank you.
We have a question.
Please go ahead.
I'm assuming that Norfolk Aggie, like Monty Tech, will have a week of academics and a week of vocational classes. Is that correct?
No, we're different in that regard from most other vocational schools as well. Being an agricultural school primarily, this is a long-standing practice, have essentially a half day in academics and a half day in vocational. The idea being that if you're in the middle of learning how to clean a sheep's hooves, you can't leave that alone for a week and go back to it. The hoof cleaning needs to be completed that day or the next day. So we have a little bit of a different schedule than most everybody else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just trying to bring up the assessment page. So if you could just for John, business manager, John, could you just read out what the assessment is? For Templeton? I just want to make sure that that's put out to the public.
What's that?
Sure.
Overall
Yeah,
assessment.
I mean, our tuition's made up of two parts. There's a base part and a capital part. The capital represents principal and interest on our outstanding debt. We have multiple bonds outstanding that have to do with buildings that were built on the campus and are being utilized currently by the current student population. That's $1,707 this year. And the base tuition, which again is based on our cost of providing the education for all students divided by the number of students, is $26,198. So that's a total of the number I represented a minute ago, $27,905. Since Templeton has only one student, the total assessment is $27,905 for Templeton.
Any other questions?
I'm good. Jeff, you got it?
Okay.
Thank you.
Superintendent Martin, thank you for coming on tonight. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mike, Mr. Chair. Transportation, did you go over the transportation costs as well? Is that also in the 27, or is that a separate bill?
That's separate.
So I want to make sure that the people are aware that there's actually a second cost to the school event, as well as the tuition. There's a transportation cost as well.
Hang on one second, John. I just have to go into the warrant.
Yes, I think it's 41,000 for transportation for the year.
I want to get the number.
Thank you.
So, okay. So mind you that the way that we calculated this is we took this year's FY24 transportation cost for this student and then added 5%. So the number for transportation for FY25 for Norfolk is 43,470.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay. All right, if there are no more questions for Norfolk, gentlemen, we're all, well, finally
There it is.
It's here.
my computer finally comes through. So that's the assessment letter. Thank you for that. I just was throwing that up on the screen. Gentlemen, if you didn't have anything else, we're very grateful for your presentation tonight, and we're glad that our student is on the honor roll. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
to hear.
News.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting us. Good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Chris, Anne Marie, and Molly. Dr. Casban, how are you?
Okay.
See. John Caplis, it's great to see you.
Ooh.
I did that.
You did?
Wow.
Notice he didn't give me any eye contact on
I
that one.
absolutely will. Get some water here before
Man, he threw that jab right at you.
It's well deserved is what I'll tell you. Yes, they are.
I
So,
think-
yes, let me be clear.
Start with the numbers.
So thank you. Thank you. Good evening to all. I mean that to everyone. So what we know, or what I know, or at least I believe that many of you were at the presentation. You have the presentation. I can go through it again, like the tri-board presentation. I believe almost everyone was at that. So, but I can certainly go through it again. And we'll do that. I just want to make sure that,
We can do it by, so they call it brief by exception, so you don't, I think it's great that Monty went first and they were able to kind of
Right.
talk through those, the math and otherwise.
yeah,
but,
we'll stay away from the math of it, because obviously after,
Yep.
after Monty Tech, and they do such a great job. So it's really no need to go through it twice. So I want to just jump right to, slide 3, if I could, if you don't mind, just kind of jumping around with just skip a bit.
Sure that your kids. are-
Well, the kids,
That picture.
yeah,
That's a good
they've,
shot.
Thanks.
it's, you know, we've talked about it a lot, but we have great kids. Community produces great kids, and thank you for doing that. And we have a lot of great projects, and we tried to highlight all the, you know, well, a lot of our new initiatives are up there, the telemedicine, the Project Lead the Way, et cetera. So we're certainly proud of them, and of course, the programming that we are able to provide.
I'm looking for Hannula.
Hannula, you'll never see. Oh, no, I don't know if you'll see him on a picture. You know, he's not much of a buff in terms of getting his photo taken. So if again, that was that slide 2. So if you move to slide 3, just the next one, we really don't want to talk about the district highlights. That's obviously the kids of the students are the reason why. But some of our district highlights is that as we move forward for FY25, and I'll just start from the top and move all the way down, but we're going to provide, certainly we are very committed to not charging any of our students user fees next year. The reason being, as I explained previously, is that although we have never turned away a student ever for any extracurricular activity, sports or otherwise, if they could not afford the user fee, what we learned, it's happened more than just a few times, but folks are proud, and they don't want to subject either themselves or their children having to go and explain that out. And so we know that there are many kids that were just not participating, although we would have never charged them, but just, you know, just admitting that they needed that type of financial help. So the best way to handle this, quite frankly, is to just to do away with user fees altogether. And that's an important piece that we really are committed to, because we, you know, as we were discussing this and talking about it quite a bit, we're finding more and more of our students were not participating for that very simple reason. So we do not want that as a barrier, quite frankly, to do the type of things that kids want to do and need to do. Our athletics, we have worked hard to upgrade the baseball field and the dugouts. We've done that mostly with rural aid monies. Our drainage, thank you, Town of Templeton. Once again, that was a huge piece through the ARPA monies. Our baseball field was underwater. We could not get it to dry out, quite frankly, and that was a huge help this year. And we were able to figure out that issue and move and get past it, because it's been dogging us for quite some time. Special education program we created last year, at the end of last year, the Thrive program, which has brought back several outplaced students. We talk a lot about this, but it saved the district, you know, close to $270,000 so far in transportation, and roughly about $200,000 out of district tuitions. Year over year, it won't be necessarily a seen savings. It will be a realized savings. So instead of kids going out, you know, maybe programmatically to out of district placements, we may have an option for them. So it'll be a cost resistant. How if I put it that way, we won't have to make those costs. And that's important for us to be able to have that type of programming to offer for the kids whom it's applicable. Our health insurance, this is Anne Marie and company. Honestly, we've been working for a couple of years to get out of our well, I'll call it our current, because it is, at least for a little while, insurance program. So we have successfully done that. We've been signed, sealed, and delivered, and we're going to see a substantial savings in the years to come. There'll be some. We'll have to pay some of the claims. I'm trying to think of the right word.
It's the run out claim.
The run out claim
from the current company that we're
right. But overall, though, it'll be a big savings to the district and to our employees. Our award-winning psych services department, you know, we have worked real hard to build that kind of piece by piece, and then we're starting to see the awards are quite frankly secondary. We have done some fantastic work with kids whom are, you know, who have social emotional issues in the district and beyond, and we're just really proud of that programming, and it's vital. It's becoming more vital every year. So we're certainly proud of that. And our curriculum, the Project Lead the Way, the early college course offerings, which we talk about quite a bit. we increased from 4 to 15. Those are full, I can tell you, and the early college enrollment increased from 10 to 40 students in 1 year.
Wow.
And what that is, that's a savings to parents. Quite frankly, for those students who want to go on to secondary education. So it's, those are the things that it's taken a couple of years to kind of see the fruits of our labor, but it's been well worth it. We were really focused on making sure that we were connecting with the disconnected, getting feedback from the community about the budget. Lots of times you sit, you kind of create the budget and you go, this is what we want. Well, lots of times that doesn't align to maybe what voters want, or, our voters in your end, but, our community members on our end, our parents. So when we put out a survey early on, and we weren't surprised necessarily, but I will, for number one was the teacher-student ratio, because the classes, as we will talk about and have talked about, they're increasing because we have more kids than we certainly had 2 years ago, close to 100 more across the district. Staff compensation came up quite a bit, and I think that might be because we started to unveil the project that we did over the summer in terms of salary comparison to all the local districts. And so again, we get a lot of great feedback, and we actually, really kind of set our sights on some of those aspects. So we've all seen the general fund budget page, and we call it our income sheet, but certainly what was presented, at least, or discussed at the tri-board meeting and at last week's. Time is starting to melt into each other at this point, but at the preliminary budget, with the increases or with the number of staff that we need, what you see here is exactly what you saw, call it a month and a half ago, in terms of what the increase of almost a 5% increase, in Templeton realizing $1 million in that. To realize that, again, we certainly have discussed all of those type of things. I want to point something out, because I think Tammy did a great job. Tammy is one of the two best business managers within 50 miles. The other one sits to my right, quite frankly. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is the E&D monies. And if you heard her talk about her E&D monies, and you heard her talk about some of the projects that they want to, through their stabilization accounts, and they don't want to go too far because they want to keep their folks, we're going to use 500,000 of our $560,000 or $80,000 available monies. We don't have that luxury.
Mm-hmm.
We are constantly worried about whatever is going to happen, and people are going to say, well, why didn't you plan for it? Well, we put it towards the budget. And I just want to make sure that I say those type of things. As I was sitting back there, I looked at Anne Marie and said, boy, those are some great projects to do. Now, thanks again to the town of Templeton with the ARPA monies, we were able to take a lot of things off of our list.
Mm-hmm.
And which we would have never been able to even honestly consider, just because of the sheer the prices. So I want to say thank you, because that was able to get us through some, not just the field, like we talked about the field drainage, but we're talking about technology increases and a lot of the field work that we did need to do. So thank you very much. So when you want to break down the just the increases and where they come from, on slide 6, you see, of course, the account descriptions, which we it'd be the next slide, but about how they fall in each category. But you could honestly just skip to slide 7, and that really just kind of highlights what each of those areas are. 1 through the 1,000 through 9,000 series, and what does that all mean? And I'll start off with the 1,000s, but you see there, you talked about increased prices for payroll, onboarding of software, our district attorney, the attorney, pardon me, auditing services, etc. That's an 8% increase. Transportation actually went down. So that's doesn't happen all the time. But it certainly went down this time. But nursing and athletics also falls under 3,000. Maintenance, you see a pretty good increase of 7%. And really inflation. And of course, we have custodians and maintenance of the buildings, and we're trying to do preventative maintenance, et cetera. Benefits, almost balanced, right? We saw almost a no increase there. The debt, our biomass boiler went up a smidge, I'll you say, but not even 1%. And tuitions, so when we start talking about out-of-district tuitions or school choice, et cetera, or the out-of-districts, we saw a 13% decrease. That I'm going to say, folks, that it's due to the Thrive program. And I say that, proudly, because these are the increases that we worry about because we have no control over them. As everyone knows, someone moves in tomorrow, they need services, or they're already in a out-of-district placement. We assume those costs. So, and it can happen tomorrow. And I say that always, but as of right now, we're still sitting 13% last year. So we'll take the good news, right? Our revenues, very simply stated, a lot of state aid. We absolutely chase down every dollar of Medicare that we can. There are services that are billable mostly to our special needs students, and we do that. We chase those dollars down. Local contributions are E&D. The grants and revolving, just like every school district, Monty Tech does a great job. I don't want to get, pump their tires any more than I need to, but they have a lot of opportunity for grants, especially with the innovation grants, et cetera. We do an excellent job for a small district chasing down grants, and actually have been awarded some big ones over the years, especially the COPS grant a couple of years ago for the safety, et cetera. But our revolving funds, all of those things, they play into it. So when someone says, well, how much does it cost, to run the district, Gatsby, and I tell them it's $28 million. Give or take, right? Because, we do go after grants and the revolving funds, anything we can do to offset cost. And that's always, it's a way of life, quite frankly. So what does our grants and revolving look like? Well, our school lunch revolving, we don't charge for school lunch. And so people say, well, how do you have a revolving at this point? And I have a feeling that the state's going to probably clamp down on this fairly soon, if not immediately, but we still get reimbursed for meals, et cetera. And so there are monies that are reimbursed to through the school lunch program into the revolving, and all those monies generally have to go right back into kitchens, food, stuff, I'm sorry, salaries, et cetera. So it's good, but it's not like you could spend that someplace else. It's really got to stay within the bounds of food service, which is great because we've been able to upgrade, some of the older things, up at the middle and high school. School choice, we cover 9 teachers out of that. We talk about that a lot. Over the years, I think we've actually decreased the number of teachers we've put in and out, but they do we try to put the lowest paid teachers in school choice. So that way it does not, our newest teachers. So it doesn't affect the school choice revolving, because as everyone knows, we do not take as many school choice students as we did in the past. Yeah. We're roughly down 100 kids than the last time, say 2020. That was by design. Because our schools were starting to fill, and our elementary, et cetera. Circuit breaker, that's a reimbursement, for excessive special education costs. Generally, that's an afterthought in the budgets. They generally find out how much you're going to get once they balance the budget, and they use some type of voodoo magic, and they say, well, you're going to get this percentage on that, and et cetera. But it's generally X dollars over a foundation amount for out of district placements, and I believe it's 48,000 or
it changes.
Every year.
40,000.
Yeah. So any dollar above that, they give you a percentage of money towards every dollar that you expend over whatever they set as the limit. Federal grants, we talk a lot about that. Title I, Title IIA, IDEA, SPED Early Childhood, 240. All those, some of them are entitlement grants. Many of them are in that category for sure. State grants, we have the nursing grant, and any other grant that we are eligible for. and of the local receipts, preschool extended day programs that cover one teacher, paras, daycare providers, et cetera. So when people are paying for extended day, they are paying for the folks that we have at extended day. And of course, preschool is also, which is very expensive. We understand that, but we keep within what is the going rate, so to speak, in terms of the cost per day. And we have a lot of preschool and kindergarten kids going, so they're young and they're coming. So why so much? Well, you heard Tammy say it, and we're held harmless, for $38,000. Woohoo. Our student enrollment and class sizes are big. We've got some large classes. They're now at the middle and high school, I know this is going to sound odd, but they're bigger. And when kids get bigger, they take up more space. I know that's just kind of general, but they look more crowded in the cafeteria when they're not, tiny and small. There's just a lot of bodies in that middle and high school. Like I said, we're plus 100 kids after all said and done. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Our increased special education enrollment, we're close to 22%. We're at 21 and some change. For that, we've seen quite an increase. Those are students who are here. Okay, no, we're not talking about out of district at this point, which obviously, comes with cost at times, either through para support or et cetera. And you've heard this plenty of times, positions needed to address class size and staffing. So you've seen this. You heard Tammy talk about it row by row. I won't go into it too much other than to say that when we talk about the low income, we too dropped a low income group, and we are, $267,000 short than we were last year in that reimbursement.
We went from
45
8 to
students.
7?
Yeah, we went from 8 to 7.
Wow.
I believe they went from 7 to 6.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we saw that, and Tammy is exactly right. The reason being is that they, of course, changed the criteria, Mass Health, and we knew that it was coming. We just didn't know how it would affect us. Right. Chapter 12. Yeah. Page or slide 12 is just really, we just wanted to, make it bigger. Quite frankly.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, we appreciated
Yeah,
that.
right, exactly. It's like the one thing I
was
can
the
read with,
bifocals.
it's the one thing I don't have to put my glasses on for. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So when we decreased 8 students in foundation, we were one of the districts that actually lost the fewest kids out of the 200 or so who were held harmless. So really, that's about break even. And again, when you get into
held harmless.
Yeah, and you're still in held harmless. It doesn't matter if you're one.
Yeah.
What I mean. But the fact is that when you take into account kids who graduate, kids who go on to other schools, and all these other things or move on, and we're still, at least enrollment wise, in seat, we have more kids than we did. That just gives you an impression. It just tells you that we're making up for the kids who are leaving in their residence, and we'll talk about that because when you look on slide 14, it's really a breakdown of what everyone really knows. FY21 was COVID. I put that in there obviously because it happened, but it was such an anomaly that it's hard to take any of those numbers seriously. But if you look, you see that the differential was 67 kids after you take out, the 37 kids for school choice that we have just not replaced. And again, when you look at that, so the differential of 67, that is a lot for our community. But we saw close to 100 new kids come into this district. And their residents. And so that is the interesting thing to really look at, because again, like in the next slide on 15, you'll see the breakdown by the towns and how many school choice kids. And so when we last talked in, FY20 and the teachers were cut at the elementary, the message was loud and clear. You need to cut the number of school choice students so that way those class sizes are not large, because they were inflated with school choice kids. There's no way around it. They were, because we had 250 in our district at that point in time. Well, now we have 160 and we still have more kids than we did like in FY21, and we're, you know, a stone's throw away from FY20. So that means almost kid for kid, they were replaced with residents, which was when we started picking up on this, it just didn't seem possible, but true. Obviously, it's true. So the famous graph to show you how many is enrolled and what does foundation look like. So you see that the foundation enrollment's going up because we have more kids who live in Templeton and Phillipston. This is the district. And our enrolled is obviously, it's flat this year, but looking from FY21, we have gone up quite a bit year over year. So those are the things that we are watching very closely. And that's a good thing. Yes.
Just gone the enrollment.
Yep.
Are we still looking on the out years to continue to reduce the number of school choice students we're bringing in as opposed to, or are we looking to stabilize that at this point?
I have no choice because we're so full.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And so that presents a whole different problem when we get to school choice, the revolving fund.
Right.
But the answer to that is yes,
Mhm.
because it was, there has not been a school choice student accepted at the elementary. I think it's 3 or 4 years when it's
Zero.
zero. We currently only have, and I'm not going to count the pre-K tuitioned in because
Yep.
they're not school choice.
Right.
We have 14 or 13 school choice kids out of 620. You know,
In the elementary school, K through 4.
and that, and with the same number of elementary
Yeah.
kids.
The elementary
You know,
school is
so-
basically all residents.
I said this now for 3 years. I'm going to keep saying it. The plan would have worked.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it. The plan would have worked slowly over time. You reduce the number of okay, and all the school choice kids would have been reduced, but never added on to.
Mhm.
The numbers would have stabilized. Those class sizes would have been fine. Well, let me just put it that way. It just never happened.
It's still fortuitous that we did that. Consider the alternative, still taking school choice and adding 100 extra students
That'd be
in
at
residence.
1,600.
Yeah,
Would be
we'd be at
way out of
1,600.
bounds.
It's fortuitous that COVID happened.
Hmm.
And you're gonna say, what, Chris? I'm gonna say it was because it was the ESSER monies that allowed, because as this was all going on, we still had kids assigned. And ESSER allowed us to keep the fifth teacher in every grade. If we didn't have ESSER, if let's just say it was a typical year and it happened how it happened, we would, I don't know what the class size, but then again, maybe if COVID didn't happen, folks wouldn't have moved out west. So we don't know, but they did, and they came.
It's trending that way anyway, because Boston.
Now it's trending that way regardless, right?
Ridiculous, you can't even
Right.
afford to live.
And it's true, it's true. So there's the school choice trend report. The important number, the most important number is the blue line. That's the differential. I've got to keep that differential in the positive. How it happens when it goes south is that, you see a lot of kids start to go out of district in that, and so then you're upside down, as they say. Well, we have never had this few kids school choice out of this district.
Mhm.
And we've never had more residents, not ever, but in the last 8 to 9 years that are in this district. That is a statement to the teaching staff, and the folks who do the real work, because kids want to stay. Their parents want to keep them here. And of course, we have a line out the door for anybody who wants to school choice in. We can't take. So you see the receiving going down. You see, of course, the sending going down, and the differential line is getting, a little close, right? So we have to watch that. But the great news is that and I never thought it would happen, honestly, that we got insurance out of school choice that should have never been put in there. And it was for cost saving reasons, but that is out, and that will never go back in, because that's a dangerous game to play. And so which really drove the reason why the numbers had to be so high in school choice. No, especially if you start dipping like that. So we had to get it out this year because, boy, it would have been difficult, right? So I tried to do some projections in terms of enrollment. So this is what I did. I did not count the kindergarten because they're so fluid, and they come in, and pre-K is definitely fluid. So I just simply took grades 1 through 4 because they're static, right? And I said, okay, I'm just gonna graduate everybody up a grade. So I graduated the seniors and moved everybody up one grade. So if they were kindergarten, they're now first grade, you get it, okay?
Yep.
So when you start looking at TES and you say, well, that's a pretty big drop, right? You got 432 now of those of students, and you've got 407 kids. That's a healthy drop. Yeah, but I don't have kindergarten there. We have 90 kindergartners, you know what I mean? So there you go. So we're right back, and then who knows about pre-K. But off to the right, you see there are 248 pre-KK eligible kids for FY 25 out there somewhere. And granted, pre-K could go to other,
Yep.
you know,
They could go to
pre-Ks out
private,
there.
they could go
Yeah,
to other-
they could. Kindergarten, you don't have to go to school in kindergarten. That's not mandatory, but what we know is that most kids go to school for kindergarten for all the right reasons, which is educational, but also you need a place for your kids to go because you have to work. And school is a lot cheaper than paying whatever folks are paying for daycare. So, middle school, you can clearly see that that's where one of our high areas are right then and there. When you just graduate everybody and say, no one's going to move in, and you still have more kids, that is something to keep an eye on. We know that's our area. And the high school is in the same boat, right? So when you look at that and say, nope, nobody will move out, or nobody will move in, you know, whatever, and you see that is an indicator right there that, you know, we're going to be high again in terms of our numbers.
And that's where we're riding the wave right now.
We're riding the wave right now.
It is moving through the middle of the high school.
It is, but the kindergarten looks to be another
coming.
Another wave.
I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. He's told to be nice.
No, you don't have to. Dan.
Right. I appreciate that. So the positions that we need, quite frankly, the elementary, we've worked very hard to get them where they're at right now. That took the last couple of years. They are still short 3 paras for the kindergarten because there isn't a kindergarten anywhere that doesn't have at least a para per classroom. We are the one, I guess, but we're going to work hard to do that. Where our real need is, quite frankly, if you had to triage this, is the 8th grade.
Yeah.
Because that is where that's one of the largest classes we've seen in a very long time. They're not even the 8th grade. The largest class is a year behind, 136 or so, but it's a very large group. Pardon me. The Monty Tech After Dark, you heard that.
Yeah.
And so we listened with interest about them going after a grant. I think all 3 districts, Fitchburg, Gardner, and of course Narragansett, we love this program. We love the concept of the program because, quite frankly, I know that when I say I'm really speaking for my staff. They know those students better than anybody in the world, and so they know who the 6 and 6 should be and who should go. Who's going to probably make a life-saving difference if they could go learn a trade. We're hopeful that they come through with that, and they're trying hard, by the way. Brown and company are doing great, and we're working as hard as we can. But that would be something that we would probably not be able to. I mean, we need it, but we're hopeful that they can. Yeah, that they can do it. Middle school, the music teacher and the literacy teacher. It's no secret that literacy across the United States and in Massachusetts has just plummeted, and a lot of it has to do with because the epicenter of COVID. Those kids are now up into the middle school, and they're having a lot of issues with literacy. So that's where our real focus will be, and of course, our numbers are so large that the Unified Arts numbers are gigantic. So because again, when they leave the 5th grade to go to Unified Arts, it's not 5 teachers, but there's only 4. So we don't have as many Unified Arts teachers as we have classroom teachers. So those numbers are getting really large. So it's really more kind of a detail. I just explained it out, but honestly, it's really just explaining each one of our needs by building. And so, you know, again, we don't need to really stick there unless you have some questions. We talked about compensation. What does that lead into? That leads into a lot of help wanteds. Now, there is a teacher shortage, not only in Massachusetts, but in the United States. Actually, Massachusetts is faring better than most states when it comes to this, but out this way, it's always hard to be competitive and to lure teachers from the 495 belt quite frankly. But when we are able to do that, we need to be competitive with our local districts. And so we're not. We've talked about that quite a bit. So I have 2 slides that shows the teachers and the administrative salaries in comparison. These are, Athol just finished its contract negotiation, so I have no idea where they're at. So I'm gonna keep this updated as we go.
Right.
Just so that way I'm not just gonna, this was a lot of work, and so we're gonna keep this up, and the other superintendents want this to keep up because it helps them.
Is this online on your
We
website?
have posted, I don't know, well, if this is posted, then yes.
Okay.
But I certainly, we can easily post it, or I can send it out.
No. Just
Yeah, yeah.
if the population wants to.
Yep, sure, absolutely. It'll definitely be part of the presentation after we present tomorrow for sure.
Okay. Big night tomorrow.
When you turn to page 23 and you start looking at the teacher salary, I always say that percentage of 4%, example for bachelor's step 1, is 4% below the average of our partner districts, or our neighboring districts, excuse me.
Mhm.
That is low when you're 4% below the average. And so when we start having to compete, then that's one of the issues. And again, I won't, if you have questions about how I created this or what I use for my benchmarks, I certainly can do that. But what it shows is that we've got some room to improve. We're in the last year of the contract as of FY25. We'll negotiate with our teachers union next year for 26, 27, 28. This was interesting to us because I have to tell you, slide 24, this is something I know This is your jobs, right? And so, but it's not something that we have really delved into much, because when we started looking at where all these kids, like, where are they coming? How are they getting here? Who are they? How is this happening? Because 100 kids in 2 years in our district, for a small district, is when we had a consultant come out to do a study last year in terms of how we, in terms of finances and, and how were we with compared to other regionals. He did the basic chapter 70. He refused to publish it because we received $1.1 million last year in chapter 70, which is all student driven. Well, we were plus over 2 years, 100 kids. And he said, this can't be right. Now, this is a gentleman who's done training on chapter. Matter of fact, he does municipal trainings. He said, I'm not gonna put this out there because I don't think this could be right, because it was too high. And so when we checked with the state, we checked with everybody, said, no, that's it. Because no one had, the growth was, we're not a cities see 100 kids coming and going, big cities, not little cities, big cities see that, not towns of our districts of our size. So we started to look into it, and obviously not telling anything you don't know, but we were shocked to see that 40 houses had been built, or at least had a permit pulled in the last 2 years, right? What state or what, where they're at in that process with, I don't know. And we did not try to cherry pick and add in the Baldwinville school housing, but we didn't do that. We just what do we got right now? And so literally when we saw the 40 houses, they go, well, there's one. And if they're not inhabited yet, they're coming. So we're, in our minds, we're thinking, where's the next part? So obviously we've been watching that very closely.
As have we.
As you have, and certainly I know. The default position always in a budget, generally speaking, is level service, right? You always got to figure out level service. You'd be foolish not to, in case something should go sideways. The problem with level service, there's twofold. One, I need people, right? I need staff. I just went through how we got all these kids. And when you looked at what the Templeton increase would be just for level service, in conversations that we've had, I think, 4 excellent conversations, the chairs, before budget in grand total, it was a number that was, that is higher than what was probably budgeted, quite frankly, at least initially. The problem is that as you increase kids, your local and, your minimum everything goes up, and we are like everyone else going, where did all these people come from? And we've been chasing this for a while. So we haven't, that's been the bigger issue, is that we've been able to kind of work here, work there, don't do this, don't do that, pray. Maybe this won't happen. Maybe this kid won't come in. And this year was the first year that right off the bat, we had to hire 2 teachers out of budget because and they were both special needs teachers because 1, we have 21%, which is a major increase, and 2, the number of kids, we had to do it because we were out of compliance. Never mind, just that.
Be in compliance.
Right. So, when you look at, the budget summary, I think what we know is that we all know this. This is a terrible year. I don't even know how many districts are asking, or going through it. A lot of districts are. I think that I still say that small is better. We're more nimble. We're able to do more things, and we're able to keep an eye on things a lot better. Small isn't better though when you start getting bigger quick. We just don't have capacity to grow when it comes like this, and when we're staff intensive, like schools are, police departments are, like fire departments are. When you're depending on people and you need them quickly, it's hard, right? Because they're expensive. But we can't there's just too big of a hole now to fill in terms of our staffing needs. Talked about the teachers, 6 of them are teaching an extra class just to cover needs at the middle and high school. And they get a stipend for it. So I don't, I want to be just transparent, but I'm going to burn my teachers out if I have to keep doing that as well. So that is the presentation. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh, well done. I saw that before. Good. Twice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kazvan. Any questions for Dr. Kazvan or Emily and Molly?
No, great presentation. Thank you.
No, great
And
presentation.
school committee meets tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
Okay.
And so this, again, I'll do this again, so this will be because that is the budget hearing tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Yep. Kiva.
Time.
5:30.
5:30 is the regular, 6
Yeah,
o'clock.
that's
is
right.
the
5:30 regular, then we
6
transition into
o'clock is
budget.
hearing.
6 o'clock is the hearing.
You're gonna have like coffee and stuff here.
Coffee, donuts.
So he begs me not to
What do
be,
you say,
this is what
Chris?
happens.
Your administrative staff.
I will bring.
But
Thank you.
seriously, any questions?
No, this is right.
Materials wise, that was a
Oh.
good question about, actually, I've got this presentation, so I'll send it out to advisor. Are you still using the singular address?
Yes,
Okay, so if I send it to that, that's fine.
yes.
Or did you already send it out? Okay.
It will be posted, obviously, that as we do, as works for us, because tomorrow night will be we'll post this again. It'll probably have to be, if it's updated or otherwise, but this will be posted. And if you want the actual report,
I know we have materials in our budget book, but as Adam, I looking down the table, Adam was pointing out, we might not have some of the updated stuff that you have in this presentation.
just let me know what you need. And
Okay.
we'll certainly send over as quickly as possible.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At least you know.
I got Dr. here. I'm doing, okay, so, Adam, you had something.
What did you want?
So in the budget review Saturday, we're into wrap up now.
We're under wrap up. Okay, yeah. For the meeting, I mean, they were the only people on the agenda, so we're basically just doing any housekeeping to close the meeting.
The question was asked to the police chief to look over some calculations. If he were to add more police officers to backfill,
No problem.
the chief has since provided us with the breakout for everybody, because that was asked of him from, I think, it was Mr. Moser from the advisory committee. So he sent that over to me, so I indicated to the chief I would pass it out at the wrap up.
So there was discussion about different options to fund police positions.
Yeah.
And so Andrew had a question. This was some of the data that the police chief is providing for that discussion.
Okay.
So the chief did a breakout and for both the select board and advisory committee to review.
Very impressive. Thank you, chief.
Yeah, I mean, it was a comprehensive question. It wasn't just, oh, we'll do this, and
Right.
therefore we have new officers, but it was definitely a good. This is just gonna provide more data to be able to have that discussion for adding over.
Yeah.
To say you wanted one, but we're gonna do two or
Right.
three. And instead of it being just a straight $300,000 expense, that it actually winds up being structured in and a little bit cheaper than just adding.
Right. Yeah, Andrew had great ideas. Yeah, he came forth with some
Yep.
things that we didn't even think about. It was great.
But again, it requires the allocation.
It does.
Yep.
And that's one of the points that we need to try to find where that allocation is going to come from eventually, because otherwise we can't, at Proposition 2.5, there's no way we can move forward with the amount of resources that we really need.
Right, and going forward, what we left it with is, couch cushion, I think you used the
did.
term, for that, the investment to add, even if it were structuring in like that, the investment to add that many officers requires a significant more than if we were to add in a mid-level position someplace else.
Right.
So that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our kind of our instructions or our ask at the end was, if you can find a laborer for 60, I think it was 60 was the number.
Yeah.
Or and priority to HR.
And I think the HR was part-time too, I believe, right? Was the HR part-time position?
No, it's full.
Full-time?
Full.
But we're also examining restructuring as well. So
Yes.
it is a select board goal and our office is taking it seriously.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, the organization chart should be helpful with that.
I agree.
Good.
That's all we had. We really even didn't have that as a discussion item other than just budget discussions. That's all we had on the agenda for tonight, and I think we achieved that by getting 3 good presentations. Any other housekeeping before we close for this evening?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I did reach out to the Worcester County Retirement, which came about as a result of the discussions.
I did read the email,
And I have reached out and I have heard back, about potential dates, and as a date materializes, I will let you and everybody know.
Super.
Yeah, the initial email back, before, I started off using school metaphors, but I'm gonna switch to a sports metaphor. I'm not a big sports guy, but I kind of looked like it sounded like we got the equivalent of the stiff arm.
Yeah.
We're saying, yeah, you've talked about this before, paying down your liability, and unless you want to do that, that's a significant cost to be able to go to our actuary and figure out the structure of that or otherwise. So it will be good to then kind of talk through that to see what courses of action may be.
Well, I think at the end of the day, they serve us, we pay into this, and so what if it
Couldn't
costs,
agree with your sentiment more.
so what if it costs money for an actuary? I mean, if we can show them that we're really serious about this.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely one option. The other option, like we brought up as well, is to potentially go out and get a band or a bond or a grant or some type of loan, excuse me, not a grant, to pay that off completely. And have a one payment that's stable each year, which will be less than the $100,000 increases per year for the next 11 years. So when you factor all that in, but again, we gotta get all the numbers to provide to support to the select board so you guys can and girls can make the
I mean, the numbers
decisions.
really have to come from them, it's not,
Right.
it's not gonna come from us.
No. And it's going to depend on the interest rate too, and what our bond rating is, and all the other mathematical equations, and we're still at 18% debt, so which is still high. We're still under the levy limit. Everything looks, that stuff looks all great, but when you're trying to build something and build more resources in, we're gonna find every resource we can.
Well, it'll be interesting to see the outcome of the meeting, just to see what kind of outlays, like how much money do we have to spend to save money?
And that might even, like I said, in the long term, in the long goal of 11 years, that might even save money. So if we have to get a loan for $25 million to pay it off, and we're paying, 500 or
What
800.
we were left with. At
Yeah.
The end of the discussion, that was the likelihood.
Did you read, did you?
Well, maybe if
watch
we
that?
split it into thirds, it might be a cost savings by splitting it into thirds or some other proportion.
I'm sure Wellesley did a great job when they paid theirs off and got a significant savings. Are you aware of that? I mean, but
Smart debt over crushing debt.
that's right. That's right. That's right. It's almost like a consolidation. They're gonna try to consolidate it to one payment. So it doesn't increase every year, it stays based on the interest rate, which is locked.
The only other item I wanted to add too, because the select board will be voting on the health insurance. I'm not sure if you watched the last business meeting, but the board made a decision not to go with Maya and a 3-2 vote.
They did.
So that will be, we did receive a quote that will be on the agenda. NFP has been working with us. We contract out for health insurance, and Kevin Pecos will be giving a presentation to the select board at their business meeting.
Great.
So that's the other follow-up I wanted to, because that's a budgetary impact as well.
So do you think it's gonna go down? Based on the new insurance? Okay.
But they'll be in the select board packet, the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, because we still have some outlying claims as well from the old insurance. We're still gonna have that window there as well. If I'm not mistaken, right? If there's claims that are in process right now, when you switch over, you still have those outlying claims that have to be processed before the new insurance
I
kicks
don't
in.
think Maya requires that,
Okay, great.
the best of recollection.
Okay.
So once Noel gets his number, he tells Kelly what he's looking for, what we're looking for.
We're gonna work with Kelly and we'll work with the treasure collector and everybody in the parties, and I'll work with Adam, because he's he's the
We paying for.
chief financial officer. That's his job, so it's his response. So if anything messes up, it's his fault anyways.
Good way of putting it.
Well, someone had to give you a dig. All set, Mr. Chair.
Anything else? Okay, from at least the select board perspective, if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. So second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the select board is adjourned as of 8:09.
As the advisory committee chair, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have motion and second. Any other discussion? I see none. No?
Yes.
Yes. And I vote yes.